So I'm going to go ahead and get a couple seconds of silence, and we'll go ahead and kick this off.
He's frozen.
I like that. It's on me right at the perfect moment. Hey there, everybody. Today we are joined by special guest Clark Rowenson. How are you doing, man?
Doing good. Thanks for having me, guys.
Thanks for coming on to the pre-show and putting up with our nonsense, because we've got lots of nonsense.
I wasn't helping either, so.
No.
You're one of those instigators, aren't you?
A little bit.
We like instigators. They're fun. They're always fun.
Well, Roland Denzel tagged me a couple of weeks ago about an Indiegogo run, not a Kickstarter, that you were running on Magic systems. And I'm an old school RPGer. I've been playing for 40 years, and I also am writing a lit RPG book that I've basically hobnailed my own Magic system together. And I went and checked out your Indiegogo and said, oh, immediately backed. I think it was like backer number 9 or something ridiculous like that.
Well, I appreciate it.
So I'm looking forward to that coming out. But I thought that Roland had a great idea, that having you come on and tell us how we have, went terribly wrong in designing our Magic systems for years would be a grand idea.
How terribly
sure.
wrong.
Okay. I'll take the hit on that. I'll take the hit on that.
Okay. Well,
why don't you first tell us a little bit about yourself so that we can go ahead and start in the right place?
If there is a right place. Sure. Yeah. So I'm C.R. Rowenson. When you're talking to me as a human, Clark. If you're looking at my books, it's going to be C.R. Rowenson. I am a freelance developmental editor, writing coach, and I right now exclusively write nonfiction about Magic systems. I really want to get back into fiction, but I am focused on the Magic systems because it seems like there's a need for it. There's not much information or guidance out there on the topic. We have so much stuff on story structure and character arcs and all that kind of stuff. And really all we had for Magic systems was Brandon Sanderson's 3 Laws of Magic and a couple of long lists of open-ended questions that are only helpful if you already have answers. So that's where I'm coming from. And that's why I took a gamble, and I'm still gambling, but I'm really focusing in on the Magic because it's what I've been obsessed with my whole life. And yeah, that's a solid intro to me.
So your Indiegogo, which we'll share the link to in the show notes, folks, is at 60% from what you said earlier. And I have no doubt that it'll fund fully, because this is an awesome project.
I really appreciate that, because I got to tell you, like, going up to this, there were just so many overwhelming waves of like panic. Just
Pucker
like,
Factor 12, Mr. Sulu.
Why did I think this was a good idea? It's like, it seemed so clear.
Everybody who does an Indiegogo or a Kickstarter, we always hear that when we have them on the show, or like halfway through, like, oh, what was I thinking?
What was I thinking?
I spent all this time for nothing.
What's your advice for somebody that's kickstarting? I think they should drink more bourbon.
I would just say more escapism in video games. That's what I've been resorting to.
Oh, well, yeah, that would do it too.
I back a ridiculous number of RPGs in Kickstarter.
Oh, sorry.
I think the most recent one that I backed was The Last Airbender RPG that's coming out. So,
oh, nice.
So I back a ridiculous number, more than I could possibly read.
Were you saying you've been up too late playing Skyrim? Is that what I heard?
Skyrim VR. Yeah.
Oh, no.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, no.
Oh, yeah. Like, oh, man. And as with everything, with mods, all things are possible. Like, there's a mod that lets you draw glyphs in the air and assign spells to them, so you can just draw the glyph and auto-equip or auto-cast.
That's awesome.
It's crazy.
Oh.
I've seen in a number of lit RPGs the whole thing of drawing a rune in the air, glowing. I may have to put that in mine as some type of effect. See, sadly, I'm making up my Magic system as I go, but the way I get away with this, It's true.
There's the face. There's the face. That's the face I was looking for right there.
The way that I can get away with it, at least how I'm doing it, is the good guy and the bad guy at the start of this basically hash the entire game on the way in, fighting one another. And so wide scale portions of the game were either deleted or changed in ways that the player does not understand yet. So everybody is walking into this game world that's not what they expect it is. And I can make up some things on the fly, even if they're mutually, not the same. They're not fitting well together because that's what I've done to it. So I gave myself a little cover.
So, and that's pretty clever because since you did it in a video game, if you need to retcon something, you can. Because you can be like, well, the admins caught wind and they fixed it.
Oh, if only I could. The way that I isolated the character and about 250 million players in this game is the bad guy encrypted the game with them trapped in it. So their consciousnesses are uploaded. They can't get out, and none of the people on the outside can get in. So, yeah, I'm being kind of mean, but the AIs that are in the game can do some changing in the same way that the outside mods could as well. So I'll get to play with that as I get along a little further. But I have to admit that other than styling my magic system a little bit off of old style D&D, I didn't really put a whole lot of thought into it because there was nothing. There's nothing guiding you online. Here, think about your magic system. No, I just had to make it up as I went.
Well, I'm hoping this will help because I understand why, Terry. Like, I understand, but it does hurt me a little bit. Just be like, yeah, I didn't even think about it. And just slapped it on there, did some stuff here.
He says to the editor we're interviewing.
I've got a sticky note here on my desk with spells that the main character has memorized. So that's how bad I am.
Oh boy.
When you're as old as Terry, you're just happy he's not using an abacus to keep track of stuff. I'm using
Excel in a spreadsheet and a Word document,
pretty close.
So pretty close to an abacus.
Pretty close, yeah.
Oh, but as much as I will voice frustration with like the lack of resources, like I try to be I think we need to be very understanding and open to what people are doing because I personally. And this has been hard to say given some of the stuff that I've seen and read, but I honestly don't think there is such a thing as a bad magic system. I think there are incomplete and poorly implemented magic systems.
I can buy that. I've out of all the magic systems that I've seen, I haven't seen any that I just outright said, that's stupid. Yeah, I haven't seen anything like that.
It's like saying there's a bad book. I'm like, they're just books that need more work. It's really
if you don't like a book, it's because it doesn't suit your taste. That's pretty much it.
It may not suit my taste because they didn't edit enough. That's fair.
That's a fair one. Yes.
Choose to do that.
That is an absolute fair judgment.
It may not suit me because I just wasn't interested in the characters at all. I wanted to bomb them from space.
I got to tell you, writing this as a serial where I make my living as a novelist. So I'll write chunks of it and then I'll go back and write novels and then come back to it again and going, where was I at? What was I doing? That's a challenge.
Yeah. So, I mean, this is what I love. So I'm open to whatever you guys want to do. Like, I don't know if you want to talk to the blueprint, if you want to work on some of your stuff, Terry. I mean,
I don't think I want to work on some of mine because I'm committed to what I've got in mind now. I'm 25 episodes in and I've pretty well settled how the magic is working in mine. So I'm not really going to change it, but you can save others. It's too late for me, but you can save others. So why don't we let you talk about how one would approach setting up a magic system, how you envision that this would work using the thing that you're putting on Indiegogo. You don't have to get into, a lot of details about it, but the process is something that I think would be interesting to talk about.
More importantly, before you get into that nitty gritty, tell us why you need a magic system.
Because I'm probably not going to read it if you don't put one in there. I mean,
wow,
that's a big part of it. I love magic systems. If you put magic in your book, your comic book, your movie, your story, I haven't done the math, but I am so much more likely to pick it up and give it a chance if there's magic than if there's not. Granted, that's just me. So if you don't care about my opinion, whatever, do what you want.
Another thing that I forgot to mention for my magic system is the character that got into the game because he was a computer system administrator with the gaming company. He arrived with the root password. Even though he doesn't have it anymore, the game recognizes him as a deity. He's now a first level deity, and that's the whole title of Upstart Gods, is because he's having to regain all the power that he lost. And so I can do evil things and give him things that others don't have because of his deific nature.
So right now, his main ability is hurting sheep.
It's not his race. I changed it from race to ancestry. His ancestry is deific.
Well, so in terms of why you should put a magic system in there, that's one reason. But if you want a magic system, magic systems can do a lot for your story. They're a whole nother layer. So, we talk as writers, we talk a lot about using character archetypes and themes and stuff to drive home metaphors and stories and lessons. And magic systems are just another tool that can help you do that and help you enhance and augment all the other pieces of your story. So you don't have to use it, but if you do, you're putting another tool into your story to help shape and direct it the way you want it to be.
And one of the things about magic systems is it's a tool that a lot of other types of fiction doesn't have to change the world.
Yes. Yeah, and you can change the world, you can drive home thematic elements, you can build up your genre and your tone. Basically, that it's actually one of the things I talk about. I have so there's multiple ways to go about building a magic system depending on what level of detail you need and how fast you need to build it up. The magic system blueprint is specifically a high-level holistic understanding of the larger attributes and nature of your magic system. So I'm not going to lie and say it's going to solve all your problems, because it's not. The magic system blueprint isn't going to put you out with a complete intricate magic system. There's still work that has to be done outside of it, but it will give you a quick understanding of what it is, what it can do, and how it can fit with everything else. But one of the things I like to do when I'm working with people on their magic systems, I call it speed dating your magic system, because it's a 10 to 15 minute exercise where you write out the main pieces, character, plot, setting, theme, elemental genre, and then your magic system. And then you have an idea for your magic system, and then you have a set amount of time to put your magic alongside another component. And hopefully this isn't going to upset people. Make it kiss, make them work. Just be like, how does your magic tie into or support the plot? How does it tie into and interact with the characters? How does it tie into the setting, the theme? And doing that early on actually helps a lot in terms of understanding the true potential of what your magic system can do for you. One person I was working with, she was having fun with her magic system, but we went through the speed dating, and part of it is you just do like one sentence for each of the elements. Her one sentence for characters were children learning about the world, because it was supposed to be a YA series. Then we did the second part of the exercise, and we put the magic next to the children, and she was like, oh, this means I need to make my magic simple enough for children to understand. And just like that small thing completely changed how she approached building her magic system, which she was building something with, not to be demeaning, but adult level complexity in the magic system, rather than more simple intuitive stuff that kids would be able to see and test out and figure out.
I think that it's not demeaning to say that, but there needs to be, for a children's approach to this, there needs to be the sense of discovery, because that's what children are. They're discovering everything about the world. And if it's not the same up with the magic, if they're having to approach, an adult physics class as part of their world, that's going to be a jarring sort of thing.
Right. But if they can throw it, if they can palm it, if they can feel it, we're talking babies, if they can chew on it, they're going to be able to figure stuff out. But yeah, that's an example of that. Man, I can tell now that like talking with you guys is going to be tough because I'm usually there's more structure, so I'm going all over the place.
We can add structure if you like to have structure. We are very unstructured as hosts are. We tend to go where the guest is talking, but we can add some more structure if you like.
As long as it's fun and interesting and I get to talk about magic, I don't, it's fine.
How about we look at making up do the process for a fake magic system, one that we're not currently using. Just we'll approach it as if we're approaching this from a blind spot, and we'll create something. How about that?
Okay, sure. Yeah, that is something I've done with a couple of people, and okay. So one of the things that I've done is like on my business cards, I have these single sentence magic systems. So I'm gonna toss out a couple, and you guys can pick one, and then we'll just start building off of that, and you guys will be able to see what this is all about. So let's see. One of them, which by the way, I should have started off with this early, so that if we need to fight about it, we can. Tech,
There'll be
monsters,
no fight.
and magic systems to me are the same thing.
Say that one more time.
Tech, monsters, and magic systems are the same thing.
A sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic.
And if you read Girl Genius, there's a line in there that sufficiently analyzed magic is indistinguishable from technology.
I buy that.
I buy that.
I refer to it as Agatha's Law. I like it. Okay, so let's see. Some ones we've got is creatures made by shining light through stained glass that are used to fight monsters of shadow.
Ooh.
We have the wilderness is stalked by blind creatures that can only see through the eyes of marked prey. Let's see. Family crest and motto dictates the magic wielded by the bloodline.
I've actually seen one very like that. I've seen one that bears marked similarity to that.
And another one we've got is, if we wanted to do more tech route, enhanced to produce electricity, human bodies can power devices for a short time. Or if there's
unfortunately, Paul can only play Pong with his brain because that's all he's got.
So what we're doing right now is one of the things on the blueprint is called the seed crystal. And that's something that I've discovered is essential before you really start building a magic system ever. And that's your core concept or core font of inspiration that you're going to grow everything else around. And that comes from, I have a chemistry background, and chemistry labs will use tiny little particles of crystal called seed crystals to rapidly grow larger crystals faster and with higher purities. So that's what you want. You want to find your seed crystal so you can build your magic system. It can be a magic system concept. It can be a character. It can be a character moment. It can be a plot. It can be a world. The seed crystal can be anything, but you need to know what it is. So we can go with one of these prompts, or if you guys have something else that you've been just kind of kicking around in your heads, we can jump with that too.
I'm going to let Paul speak first because I'm good with discussing any and all of them because I'm a brainstormer by nature, and I just love talking through things.
So let's talk about tech.
Okay. What about tech? You just want the seed crystal?
You want to do tech? Do you want the seed crystal to be the tech that he talked about, where we're generating?
How would you do that for generating electricity, or what are we going to call that? Bioelectric weaponry?
So it's like the Matrix, where all humans are plugged into the net so that they can power the machines. Is that how that works, Paul?
I mean, you could do that, or we could just go with the standard thing. If somebody has either magically or technologically amped up what mitochondria do, that was part of where my brain was with that. But yeah, so if the seed crystal is people can produce enough electrical power to power devices, I think that would be the seed crystal. So the next one over there is perspective, which all of the times I've been building this with people, because I've been doing a lot of outreach trying to get in touch with guys like you and other people like you so I can, get my face out there and stop hiding in my office. But perspective, with everything that I've done with the blueprint, I actually think perspective is the most important, because when people get stuck with their magic systems, it's often a question of like, they'll talk about, well, how intuitive is it to use? Who can use it? Is it hard magic? Is it soft magic? Is it rational? Is it irrational? And people will start asking the questions of like, well, like my readers or my character, or like, because I know how it works, but my characters don't. That's what perspective is. Perspective is the point of view you're taking as you're looking at your magic. Because if your magic was a real tangible thing, the blueprint is a snapshot from a specific angle. So there's all sorts of cool stuff about that that I get super excited talking about, because I think it's awesome. Talk about it a little bit in the book, which means if you want to get like a really solid 3-dimensional understanding of your magic system, you can fill out the blueprint multiple times for a single magic system. So you can say, I'm gonna map out the magic system from how my protagonist sees it. I'm gonna map it out from how my reader sees it, how my antagonist sees it, how this culture sees it, and like all of that together gives you just. Okay, I'm just nerding out now. So that's perspective.
Hearing about the bodies powering machines has a very cyberpunk feel to it.
Most definitely. So in general, when we're doing this, I think our perspective is probably going to be the creators, because we don't have any of the other stuff yet.
Oh, we're creators and readers. So, it sort of works the same way. When I write a book, it's like I'm playing a movie in my head.
Yeah. So, okay. So let's focus on it this will be interesting. Let's focus on it from the reader perspective, which that means we don't know what the story is yet, but we're looking at it in terms of, as we experience the story, this is what we want the magic system to appear like. And this is how we want the reader to experience it. Okay, interesting. Haven't done that live with somebody before, so this will be fun. So we're looking at this as readers watching a movie or reading a story. The next thing up is the grid, which is the types of magic. All right, so types of magic. Are you too familiar with the concepts of hard and soft magic?
I sort of feel like I understand what it is. I would say that a hard magic is very ritualistic and very organized, whereas a soft magic is more environmental. But that's my initial take, not even knowing what it is.
So most of the understanding comes from Sanderson's first law, where he was the first one, as far as I have found documentation of, to really talk about the concept of hard and soft. And that's what drives a lot of people's understanding. When I'm talking about it, I wanted to ask, because when I'm talking about it in a little bit of a different fashion. So it's a 2x2 grid, as you guys can see. So you have the 4 quadrants, and one axis is hard and soft, and that is all about knowledge and understanding. So the harder a magic system is, the larger the percent of the system you know or understand. So in order for a magic system to be hard for us as a reader, we need to know all of the aspects of the magic and understand how everything in the magic system works. And that's what Sanderson does really well, is he lays out the system, and then all of the books are just him playing with that information and using it in different ways and revealing some stuff as you go. But Terry, what you're talking about for your magic system is incredibly soft, because you don't even know what it all is. So there's no way it's going to be a hard magic system for the readers.
There's no hard rules, because I don't know what the rules are yet. I'm making it up as I go.
God skipped that day. He just created everything, a world of chaos.
He spun the roulette wheel, and here we go.
And rules are connected with the hard and soft access, but they aren't a strict adherence. So the main thing there is, I would hazard a guess that you are not done building the magic system.
Oh, like, there's far from it. I'd keep adding pieces to it. Yeah. So it is growing as I find a need for something. I will have it grow and include that as a discovery for the characters.
And that's what soft magic is all about. So like, as a reader, if I was reading your serial, I would wager that I would read it and be like, I think I have I think I understand or know about maybe 1% of the total magic system.
Sounds about
That's
right.
a soft magic system. If I'm looking at something where I know 80%, that's a hard magic system. One of the analogies I use in my book is if you have 2 buttons, one red and one blue, each produces a magical effect. You hit one button, you now understand 50% of the magic system. You hit both buttons, you understand 100%, and you just went from 100% soft to 100% hard. And that's important because simpler magic systems are easier to make into hard magic systems. Because the less there is to explain, the faster you can explain it.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
One of the ways that I explored introducing different kinds of magic into this serial is while the guy is a role player and has some idea of what he thinks magic is, he's having some of it explained to him by an actual AI deity in the game, and his ex-girlfriend gets made into his high priestess as a complication for him. And so she has to technically pray to him for her clerical spells. And that causes a little bit of chaos.
Yeah, it would. It would.
As he asks the deity, so can I listen in when somebody's praying to me? Oh, yeah.
Can I actually hear it?
Yeah, that doesn't go over very well at all.
As the voice of God? Can I interrupt for no good reason?
Yeah, that totally does not go over well.
Oh man, yeah. So you definitely have a soft system going on. Another example, because I did a little snooping and saw all of the Stargate stuff you posted, which is why I sent you the Stargate example, and also because I love Stargate. The technology from Stargate is a perfect example of a soft magic system, because we learn about these new devices and these new capabilities and these new tools, but the writers do such a good job, at least in SG1, of making it very clear that everything we have seen is just a tiny piece of a much larger universe. And that's what soft magic systems are all about. And so then we have the rational and irrational. And this is more closely tied to the rules. But again, rules don't guarantee hard or rational magic. They don't. They tend to make it easier because if you have more rules, by learning the rules, the system becomes harder. And if there are rules, you can generally apply more logic and rationale, which is what rational versus irrational is all about. It's whether you can take what you've seen and apply logic and assumptions from outside the magic and have them be correct. So going back to my button magic, if one of them is red and you hit the button and it does a gout of fire, well, some assumptions you might make is like, okay, blue is probably going to be water, maybe air. This fire probably behaves like fire and will probably burn me. I could probably use it to light a camp stove, light a cigar, any number of things, boil water. Those are all assumptions we make from what we have seen. If those are all true, it feels like a very rational magic system to us because we applied logic and assumptions from outside the magic onto the magic, and then they were correct. Now, if the fire actually healed you or rebuilt things instead of actually burning it down, or you hit the blue button and what that does is teleport you to just like some random dark dimension, logic has been broken and you're now dealing with an irrational system. It can still be consistent. In fact, like it does it every single time, or sorry, I should say reliably performs the same way. That doesn't mean it's rational. Any Call of Cthulhu stuff is like just
very
Lovecraft
irrational
stuff. Soft, irrational, because you don't know what's out there and it doesn't make sense.
And you sure
go
as hell have no
Lovecraftian,
idea
you'll never go
works.
back.
Yeah, I think soft is basically we don't know how it works, we just use it.
Soft is we don't know the extent of it.
Not really repeatable, and you're still guessing at what may happen.
So that's where some of the other variables come in, and this is why this blueprint actually took me about a decade of processing and studying magic systems to finally get it where I have, because all of these pieces are closely connected to each other. I did the grid for hard and soft and rational and irrational because those are more closely interconnected than any of the other variables. Because the more you learn about something, the harder it becomes. And the harder it becomes, we start building our own logic chains. So there's a tendency for it to become more rational. It doesn't have to, though. Like Harry Potter is an irrational system. Marvel is a hard irrational system. We know what the superheroes can do, but we can't apply any logic beyond what we see them do. And we certainly can't apply any logic to predict who the next hero or villain is going to be and what they're going to be able to do. Like,
and sometimes they'll do different things.
Right. Power of plot. Don't get me wrong. I love Marvel.
If you watched the Loki miniseries, he showed powers in that he hasn't shown anywhere else before. And so you're sitting there going, wait a minute, he's never done that. How did that happen?
And yeah, so it's, but part of what you're talking about, so that's why it's hard to separate these out because they all affect each other. And that's actually one of the things I talk about in the book is I talk through the variables, and then I have an entire section in each chapter where I say, and this interplays with these other variables in these kinds of ways. So for example, if your system is more rational, it's probably going to be a higher reliability system, because if it wasn't reliable, we wouldn't be able to make those logic chains and form those patterns in our brain in the first place. And
go ahead.
And that kind of stuff. So
a lot of lit RPG stuff that I've reading, they tend to be very ability based. It's not so much that it's a spell you're doing, it's that some magical ability has been granted to this person, and they're refining a technique, and they're working on building themselves and gaining more power and skill in this ability that they have gotten through whatever means. The stories, it depends on what stories you read, how they get it. There are many ways to get to this sort of thing, whether it be an ability or it actually be some type of ritualistic thing that you do to cast a spell. Like the old style D&D, you make certain gestures, you say certain words, and
then you
things happen.
Fail.
And that does occasionally happen
until you know the results of the roll. Or you lead it with, I try to do this.
Or you have the character try this. Like the first time that I role played as a kid, I was like 15, 16 years old. And we were playing the old Caves of Chaos in the Borderlands module. And there's a fireball scroll in there. And one of my fellow players said, "Oh, fire, that's pretty cool. I like the campfire with that." Everybody dies. We're all dead.
Yep.
Very, very teachable moment there.
The thing I have learned about RPGs is you want to describe what your character is doing, not their success. Because if you describe their success and then you roll poorly, you just look dumb. So trying to keep myself focused. Those are the types of magics. So then each quadrant has its own characteristics. So my question to you guys is, with our human batteries, what type of system do you want to experience as a reader? Do you want to experience a soft irrational where you see what's in the story, but you know that there's all kinds of stuff outside that has not been explored? Do you want something where you can follow the logic and figure out little things that the characters may be able to do well in advance of them actually doing it? Like, what would you want to see?
Paul?
That sounds like soft and just a little bit in the rational realm.
He wants to know what you want to see, not what you think it is.
Okay, well,
yeah,
he asked you a straight question.
But that's what I'd like to see, though, I think.
Okay. Then yeah, that would be a soft rational system, which, as I'm mapping out more systems, a lot of your broad tech tends to fall in this category, because technology generally has the aspect that there's all kinds of stuff out there that we just haven't seen yet, but it needs to be rational so that you can go from one to the other. And that's where Stargate sits, actually, with their tech as well.
Right.
Talking about bodies powering devices, what immediately jumps to my mind, and it's not really looking at the magic system, but as the body charging something as an initiator and then lots more power being added to it from an external source, because your body can only power so much. But if you can power a device that then draws on the fusion generator to do things at your command, then you're augmenting your power.
Or if you just use your power to flip the switch so that the circuit completes
There you
to
go.
the main battery charge, then that'll do it.
Which segues kind of into the next couple of thingies here.
Thingies. We're doing thingies now.
Thingies on your sheet.
We've been
Attributes.
doing thingings, Terry. Weren't you paying attention?
Yeah.
Oh
Did
gosh,
you miss
I
the
hate
thingy
so
meeting?
technical. So technical.
So next up is transference, and I have a little cheat sheet here because as I wrote this, the wording is important for some of these, but transference is about how readily magic can be picked up, taken away, or shifted around between magic users.
Okay.
Tech tends to have really high transference. Hereditary magic tends to be very low transference. You're either born with it or you're not. There's no other way to move it around. Tech, it's as simple as handing the gun over to somebody else.
Right.
So next to that, we have prevalence, which is about the abundance or absence of magic in the story or world. So as readers, which this is interesting, I love the reader perspective because as a writer, everybody should fill out the reader perspective because that's the one that matters the most. But it is how abundant or absent it is in the story they experience. So, for example, Rogue One has very little force powers in it. So the prevalence of the force in Rogue One is pretty low, especially compared to all of the other Star Wars movies. Now, that doesn't mean that's how prevalent the force is in the universe.
Right.
But that's what we see as the reader.
Okay.
So that's
Here's those
prevalence.
mitochondrians.
Exactly. Yeah, we
Those are midichlorians.
Whatever.
we basically have electric midichlorians in our system instead of just telekinetic nebulous midichlorian. Anyway. So another one is flux, which ties directly into prevalence, and that is how your prevalence is changing over time. So it's about the amount of magic that is present inside the system, and not just the magic system. When you're talking science terms, you can define a system boundary to be whatever the hell you want. And I hope swearing's okay, because when I get excited, it's just going to happen.
Yeah, it's fine. Go ahead.
So it can be whatever the hell you want. But as readers, our boundary is probably going to be the book, or maybe specific characters if we only have one POV. So if it's positive, that means more and more magic is appearing as time goes on. That's pretty standard if you're in a single character's head, because the character tends to grow in power over the course of the book or the series. You could look at the world, you could look at a specific object. It really doesn't matter. So positive, negative, and neutral.
One of the things that I did in the serial is it was ability based before I shifted everything around. So virtually no one can use magic at this point. The main character is one of the only people that has access to an actual spell book because it was provided to him by a goddess.
Okay.
And over time, that's going to change.
Right.
Because the players are going to figure out, oh, I can do these things, and the game is going to start populating them on its own. So it starts with they've almost lost all of their magic, and now it's going to start growing back in a different way.
So that would definitely be positive. And one note about neutral does not mean nothing is changing. Neutral just means as much is leaving as is entering.
Okay.
So the amount going out is the same as the amount coming in. That's what neutral means. So you could even build a story where one magic system is being phased out and replaced by a completely different one, and the flux of your world is still neutral.
That could be one heck of a conflict in a story, with the old style magic users fighting against the new style.
Yeah. And this is why perspective is so important.
It could also be a leap in technology that somebody's made and the others haven't. Same diff.
Yeah. Yeah. And depending on where you're looking, some people it will be positive, some it will be negative, and different perspective it'll be neutral. But that's what flux is. Then you have source. So a lot of these are ranged from their spectrums from high to low, prevalence, transference, naturalness. Those are all ranges that you can move a slider along. Flux has 3 discrete settings, which we talked about. Source has several discrete settings. This is about where the magic comes from, how much magic there is, and whether it can run out. So this is where you kind of decide if there's fuel, so the main decisions you have are internal or external. Does it come from the magic user, or are they pulling the power from somewhere else and then directing it into the magic? And then is the power source finite, infinite, or renewable? Those are your options.
There was an old science fiction book that I read when I was a kid that their star drive was powered by suns. If they jumped from one solar system to another, a sun in the galaxy extinguished itself. And as the story went on, the number of suns went down to where at the end of it, it's all gone.
Yeah, which that wouldn't be a big deal if you had one ship with that kind of drive. But when you
I think it'd still be a big deal, even if you have one ship.
I mean, my point is it would be close to infinite, right? It would be close to infinite number of jumps you could do. But when you have an entire galactic civilization doing this, it is most definitely finite. And a lot of magic stuff tends to be renewable, especially in games, right? Because they want a limited resource that you then get back again later.
You just go kill the bad guys, steal the mana, and now you could do your spells again because you're reloaded on your potions.
Yeah, or you sleep. Or you sleep. Yeah,
that's you basically cheapest, allow yourself to recharge like a battery.
Yeah, that's the cheapest bullshit out ever.
Hey, that's how I'm doing this, man. You're talking about me now, man.
Well, in the case of our human batteries, it makes sense because if it's powered by their body, they just need time for their body to build up the charge again.
Time for another burrito.
Yeah. And we can decide whether that means they need to eat a lot of food or whether it's like emotionally related. It could go any number of ways, depending on how somebody wanted to pitch it. But in this one,
stick their fingers in an electrical socket and
yeah, I mean, maybe you just jam your hand into a fusion reactor.
I've got questions about your magic system, Paul. I've got serious questions.
Oh boy!
Here, you want to recharge? Here's a butter knife. Go stick that in the electrical socket. You can just see the character flying across the room and go, "Yep, I'm ready now."
I totally don't suggest you do that in a YA novel. I totally don't suggest you do that.
Hey, lightning storms would be pretty interesting if that was the case.
Oh yeah, no shit.
Everybody climbing trees, waving around golf clubs,
Well, in this case, ammo is finite.
Yeah, and again, depending on the perspective, you could also consider it renewable. So, like a single Marine is probably going to see it as renewable because they just go requisition a new magazine.
Yeah, and slam home a clip, and I'm ready to rock.
Or you're like Terry, and you reload your own ammunition because that's just what you do.
Yeah,
but if you're in a combat, I don't think that's what you're going to do. I think you're going to grab the magazine rather than say, "Time out! I have to reload. Time out! I got to reload."
Let me get my press. 1 second.
There's a series called The 10 Realms by Michael Chatfield, and it takes a pair of special forces operators and puts them into a lit RPG world, and they use magic to create more powerful versions of their weapons, more powerful ammunition, and things along those lines. So the analogy can work.
And I have to ask, do you recommend that series?
I do. It's an excellent series.
Okay. I had a rough time with the beginning of the first book.
I listened to it in audiobook, and it's very easy to get into the cadence that the narrator puts the characters into.
Okay. I might give it another try. I got partway through and had to put it down for a little bit.
Tastes are what they are. Fair warning, if you listen to it in the audiobook, he changes narrators at book 6 because the previous narrator couldn't do it. And the first book of the new narrator was a little hard for me, but I'm adapted. I've adapted it to the newest one.
Okay.
Michael Chatfield, he also did another series. I can't remember what the name of it is. That's lit RPG. That was excellent.
Okay.
I'll have to look it up because he's a really good author.
Okay. I I started the 2-week curse, and I ran into some parts that were giving me difficulty, and I jumped over.
I will look at the other one and find the title for you, because the other one is not violent in perhaps the same way that one is.
It's more, there seemed to be stuff that was a lot of head hopping. This is turning into a book review, and that's not the point of this.
Damn that head hopping.
So anyway, that's that source. And in our case, I think we're most definitely going to be dealing with internal renewable, because anything else wouldn't really fit the vibe of the seed crystal. And that's part of the point of the seed crystal. It should help you answer some of these things right away.
The Trapped Mind Project.
Okay. Stand by.
Wow.
It was one of the earliest series that I jumped into when I found Lit RPG, and that one really appealed to me. So I hope you like that one.
I will check it out. Okay. So the quick overview of everything is turning out to be not quick and not really an overview, but that's okay.
It is what it is.
So the other ones that we have are, the other variables we have are naturalness, and this is where we're back to a spectrum from low to high levels of naturalness. And naturalness, again, is all perspective based.
Right.
And it is how natural or normal the magic appears and feels compared to the rest of the setting. And that's really important, because timing and perspective will change how something appears. If you go into a new country and people are talking a language you've never heard before, it's going to sound weird. And when you try and learn it, it's going to feel weird. The mouthfeel, the sounds, it's gonna have a low naturalness to you. But as you're there and you grow and you learn and you see how it all connects in, it will increase in naturalness. It also has to do a lot with the connection of the setting. So things that are tied to natural forces tend to have a higher level of naturalness, simply because they're more deeply connected to everything. Whereas stuff like Lovecraft is very low naturalness, because that's how they want it.
Yeah. You will lose your mind if you see them.
Right. Yeah. It's
Yeah, you're pretty much about as unnatural as you can get at that point. Yeah.
It's totally natural. Yog Shoggoth, totally natural.
To him, perfectly.
Yes. To the deity,
to him,
no problem.
we're the unnatural ones.
The ants to be stomped on.
So then there is ease of use, which, as you might expect, is about how easy or intuitive the magic is to use safely and effectively. I added those caveats because doing something may be easy to do, but you die in the process.
I hold the grenade too long. Yeah.
What happens if I do this?
My grandpa always used to say, you don't need a parachute to go skydiving. You need a parachute to go skydiving twice.
Oh, that's a good way. I like that.
Once you pull the pin, Mr. Grenade is no longer your friend.
Yeah.
Right.
Exactly.
So that's what ease of use is all about. And that includes like whether people needed advanced training, knowledge, just how volatile the magic is. Like it may be very intuitive and require very little learning. But if it requires a lot of luck and a lot of finesse so that you don't blow yourself up in the meantime, it's still not an easy to use magic system. And so, yeah, that ranges from low ease of use to high ease of use.
Because theoretically, anybody can grab a weapon and start using it.
Yeah. So again, tech tends to be higher ease of use. Different types of tech will change where it's at, but a cell phone, mass-produced technology isn't useful if you can't just hand it out to people and have them use it.
Right. Agreed.
If the phone is gene locked, that's not helpful when you're trying to sell cell phones.
So if you're in Logan's Run world and you pick up his weapon and it blows you to little bitty pieces because it doesn't recognize who you are, yeah, you probably shouldn't do that.
Yeah, it's easy for him to use, not for you.
Don't pick up the Sandman's gun. Bad things happen.
And you can see how that ties into transference, right? Is those can go hand in hand depending on what you have set up. So the sword or the weapon may be highly transferable. The ease of use, once you transfer it, may be pretty low.
Oh, now I'm getting this idea of a weapon where each time somebody else uses it, it gets more difficult to use.
Oh yeah, like just the coating or anything behind it gets more fractured because it's supposed to be bonded to a person. Yeah, lots of ways to take that. Okay, so we're getting to the last two, I promise, and then we can just run around and I can talk about how that connects with the different variables. So then the last two we have are reliability and consistency, which are different. Reliability is all about the extent to which the magic will repeatedly produce the same result. And the analogy I use here is soft and hard sciences, which, to be clear, because people get upset by that, calling something soft science is not demeaning it and is not saying it is less value or not science. What it is saying is it is not as reliable. Psychology, you can control the environment down to the most minute detail, even with fraternal twins, and they may choose to do different things. Chemistry, if you control all of the elements and you mix two things together, the same thing is going to happen the next time you mix those two things together in the same conditions.
Right.
That is reliability. And that's why that is distinct from rational or irrational. It may be logical and you may be able to make assumptions. That doesn't mean it will be true every single time. So that's why psychology is a science, is we can apply theory and hypotheses and get stuff that is true in larger patterns, but that doesn't mean that's what's going to happen every time we run
every
test.
individual, right?
Yeah. And then last, we have consistency, which is talking about the consistency of the magic compared to itself. So it is the extent to which the magic itself can vary in its different settings. So a lot of times when you're talking about some of this stuff, there will be the it depends moment. So talking about technology, ease of use can vary depending on the device you're talking about. Some devices will be really easy, some devices will be really hard, and the consistency of your magic system, if you're thinking about data, consistency is your error bars. So if this is your setting, consistency tells you how much it can flux or vary in either direction. And that is the whole blueprint. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk. Questions?
I think that was a very good presentation. It gives everybody a clue what scratching the surface looks like.
And if you guys want, now we can just go into full-on brainstorming, and I can just talk about what that is, how that is moving things on the blueprint, or how if we wanted to steer it if we wanted to steer one of the variables in a specific direction, how we could go about doing that. That's where I find it. That's where I get really into all of this. I don't know how much time we have, so
we have as much time as you have.
Oh, that is dangerous.
I know we could be here. We could be here like at dinner time.
I'm looking at this and thinking about the next stage of Soul and Beyond, Terry.
Uh-oh.
Because this is
Is that the part where the aliens kill everybody?
I say nothing. There's nothing to be said.
All right. Well, I'm going to throw something else out that, at least when I pieced it together, blew my mind, which probably means it's not going to be a big deal to most people. But hey, I have a simple mind. It's fine. With the blueprint, you can map it out. You can map out a single system as many times as you want. Like we've talked about perspectives. You can also map it out across time. So if you wanted to map out how it changes in book one, beginning of book one, end of book one, ending of book two, ending of book three, you can do that and use that to build yourself this little graph of how things are going to change and progress. Because there may be some cataclysmic event where prevalence goes from being high to being extremely low overnight. And being able to plan that stuff out this way, for me, I got super excited. It was really cool when I saw that option.
Well, those are plot points, though. I mean, when you were talking about when you said that, I was thinking about that and going, yeah, because basically you're hitting a snag with supplies where everybody's out of ammo and, hey, we have to come up with something else. What can we do to try and ad hoc stuff?
Yeah.
Or, hey, we found this alien cool tech. We have no idea what it does. We have no idea how it works, but we're dumb monkeys, so we're going to try and use it.
Yeah. You can map stuff as many times as you want, as fine a level of detail as you want. Like when we're talking about the boundaries, that's part of perspective as well. So perspective is point of view, time, and scope. Like you can zoom in to a very specific part of the magic system and just look at that when you want to map it out. If you really want to know how things are going to work and how a specific, or how disruptive a specific piece of technology is going to be to your story, map it out just looking at that piece of technology. Like this piece is going to be completely irrational. It's going to be really hard to use because it's extremely dangerous, but it has really high transferability. Do I really want to put that in the middle of my story?
Looking at Stargate, you've got the difference between the gold staff weapon and the Zat gun.
Yes. Yeah.
The Zat gun's kind of irrational.
Or even the staff weapon and their sarcophagus, right?
Yeah.
Those behave very differently in terms of these, and that's why consistency of the system overall varies. So, as readers with this technology where people are powering devices with their bodies, what kind of stuff would you want to see? I know I'm immediately going to power armor because, yes.
While he's thinking about it over there, the series that I started writing science fiction wise has implants inside people's bodies that, to a degree, they're powered by the body. So these people that are heavily modified, they have to take in a lot of calories. They have to eat a lot because the stuff has a physical toll on them, even though the more powerful aspects of it are powered by external sources. Just their internal muscles, they're coated. Their muscles are coated with artificial muscle that increases their strength, that changes their nerves, that does things in their brains. So powering via body is definitely something that is done a lot in various kinds of science fiction when you get to that point.
Yeah, and you could even do it where like the power itself is hard to use, and it's not until you get the implants that you're able to actually do anything productive with this energy you're able to produce, because it lets you actually harness and shape it. So yeah, like different ways that you can slice it.
So you got power armor, you've got maybe lightning strikes that the body can do, and obviously whatever you're using. When we talk about power armor, I assume you power it up and it could take a couple of strikes before it runs out of battery, so to speak. So you basically have to, you can power your armor or you can fire your weapon. You cannot do both at the same time.
Yeah, I'm actually, now that you say it, I'm kind of getting an Iron Man vibe from the end of the first movie when he has the arc reactor, and it's like, okay, I have this much charge, and everything I do is draining the charge.
Yeah, every single thing.
Very careful with what I do.
Right. I actually like that, because then when that person is put into a situation where they're on their own and fighting maybe a horde or something like that, it changes the strategy completely of how they're going to use the technology to get out of the mess they're in.
And that could actually tie really, really well into a lit RPG, because now we have a mana pool that you could put stats on for everything, right? They could have the armor where it's like, all right, this drains my energy 10 points a minute under normal wear. And then you have the moment where the character doesn't know that means normal wear and not combat use. It's like, why is it draining 10 times faster? I thought it was like 10 a minute.
Because you're taking 10 50 caliber shells a second. That's why. Yeah. Stuff like that.
Yeah.
I like that. I like that a lot. That's good.
So
pardon me while I stick myself in this electrical socket. Can we have this fight in a minute here? I got to power up real quick.
So part of what I'm hearing from, so we know we've kind of got a soft, rational system going on, because once we see that, like, okay, he can shoot lightning out and the lightning can power other devices from across the room, we want to be able to run with that. I'm assuming, like, at least as a reader, I like being able to daydream and be like, okay, what could I do with that? I could use that to fry somebody's car, turn on the toaster from across the room, like, what could I do with that? That's why you need it to be rational.
Take out the surveillance cameras. Fry the audio recorders. Got it.
Transference for this system is a little interesting because it depends on how we want to look at it. It sounds like the power itself is not transferable, because you either have it or you don't. Unless we want to make it that it's like an implant process that you undergo and it grants you this ability.
No, but even implant is you have it or you don't.
Yes, but if it's technologically produced, it's a slightly higher transference than if it's just hereditary.
True.
It means that other people could have the same type of implants.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And then money becomes a factor, right? It's about who has the money to get the best implant, so that they can produce the most energy rather than just who has the innate ability. So you could go either way. And we could do all of the above. Like if we set the consistency to high, it may vary wildly depending on the aspect of the magic system or even the part of the world we're talking about. Because we could be looking at a cyberpunk world where you have one area that's really heavy into the biomodding. So to them, unlocking the ability in somebody is as simple as getting a shot. But then you have another world where you either have it or you don't. But then once you have it, what you do with it is entirely dependent on the tech that you get installed. Like just by doing that, you're changing transference and ease of use and all of these things at once just by changing some of these things. And it's all the same magic system.
One of the things that I plucked out for my universe and what I was doing with mine were aspects of things that David Weber wrote into a story he wrote called Path of the Fury. And he said in there that, these high-end Imperial commandos with all of this modification to their bodies, it cost as much to make an Imperial commando as it did to create a light cruiser in their space navy. But they had to do it because sometimes you needed surgical precision instead of a nuke.
Right. So yeah, I hope this is like bringing up ideas and stuff. The problem I have with this is because I've been dealing with it for like a decade now, I really like to get into the weeds of here's all of the nuances and the complexities and the way stuff like flows together. I want to be clear. The book does not do that. I worked hard to make the book a solid entrance to the topic so that you can grasp the concepts and actually start to use it. In fact, there's a bunch of stuff that I cut out because I was like, okay, if I'm thinking about chemistry, this book needs to be Chem 101, not Chem 226. Like
not biochem.
Right. Doesn't need to be theoretical physical chemistry. It needs to be Chem 101. So if anybody is watching this and getting really worried, I did my best to make the book as simple as possible, and a number of my beta readers confirmed that I was at least marginally successful. So,
and you can be as superficial as you like creating your own system. And anything you use is just a guide. In the end, it's going to be your creation.
Oh, yeah. And if any of my stuff doesn't make sense or doesn't work for you, for the love of God, don't use it. I'm not here
It's not mandatory. It's optional.
I'm not here to tell anybody how to do something. I'm here to help people do stuff they already want to do. Like,
that's a good way of putting it.
So that's one of the big things. I had another thought and it kind of just ran away. So sorry.
Happens to all of us, me particularly.
Not a problem. I'd never ever thought about looking at the technology from the reader perspective versus the character perspective. I think there's probably some innate, you're following your instincts on how some of that works, but that is a very interesting thing to bring up because I'd never really thought about it.
That's one of the things that I noticed, because especially when I was talking about the types of magic, that was always people's question of like, well, but the characters don't understand it and the reader doesn't understand it. But yeah, and this is what I like doing. I like building these tools that make it easier for you to do exactly what you want to do faster. So if you go in knowing what you want the reader experience to be, you're going to be able to you will have an easier time writing a book that does that when you have it identified and you have the tools that help you break it down that way.
You can't create the weaknesses and flaws that are necessary in these sort of things if you don't think about what they are before you need them.
Yeah, not without it feeling flimsy or confusing. Like that. Yeah. There's so many.
I feel
different
like
ways
there's
to
an
do this.
anecdote just kind of like, skating the surface here. That's what I feel like is going on.
I have in the book that I'm writing, the deific character has access to a magical realm, very limited access. But as he's new to the world, he's finding out as he goes with notifications when he tries to do things that it's not possible. I'm sorry, you can't do that because you're not of sufficient level. Damn it.
And that, yeah. So one of the things about that is another thing that I want to mention is I talked a little bit about how there's not really, I try to approach things in terms of there's no such thing as a bad magic system. One is part of that is the reasons that I stated. The other one is just unleashing rampant negativity doesn't really help anything. So it's better to say like it's incomplete and needs work than to go on a whole rant about how something is garbage and the person should kill themselves, because that doesn't help anybody.
And it's less likely to be positively received.
Right, or actually make anything happen. Yeah. But
although that's how I critique Paul's stuff all the time.
You don't critique my stuff. You don't read my stuff.
It's
I know
true,
this.
I don't.
You just get the hate mail and you're like, what? Why, Terry? You didn't even read it. I don't.
Yeah, Terry tells everybody at DRS about me, but he's never read my books. So,
It's true. I figure out what I think you would write, and then I just make it up.
No clue.
In my head, you did this poorly, Paul. So fix it.
Well, that goes without saying. I get that normally from everybody.
So one of the other pieces with this goes back to specifically the types of magic, but all of this in general is there is no one answer that is best. It's about building the magic system that is going to support your story the way you want it to. And I really want to drive this home with people, because especially now with Lit RPG and with Sanderson's stuff, there's just more and more of a push for hard rational systems. And I don't want that to get away from us to go into the assumptions that hard rational systems are the best systems, because that's not true. And in fact, soft magic systems can be much harder to write and use well, because when you have something well defined, it's very clear how to use it. When you don't, it can be much more difficult to use it in a way that doesn't seem to counteract or detract from itself. So
I just like keeping my characters in the dark and feeding them shit. That's my favorite way to sidestep that particular landmine.
Yeah, that is always a fun thing that you can throw out.
Honestly, Paul, I have read some of your things. The way that you approach your horror in space is you feed the protagonist little bits of information and lots of stress so that they can figure out, oh, this didn't work and my friend just got ate.
Yes, why is our normal ammunition not working? Maybe we should try something else.
Trial and error with high consequences.
Yeah, with very high consequences. We either figure out some way to make these BCs go away or we get eaten. Yes, the agonies of choice.
The answer is we get eaten.
The answer is we get eaten.
For a lot of your characters,
it seems
I'm going to have to look this up. I love space horror.
It's called the Derelict Saga. Soft rational seems more like where I would play normally.
Horror works great for soft systems, and it also works great for irrational systems. When it's soft irrational, I personally tend to find the horror gets a little frustrating, because you don't know what it is. You don't know what you can do, so you're just running around hoping you don't die, and that's not what I like in my horror. I know that is a type of like existential, overwhelming, helpless horror that some people like.
So
That's
you've
not
read
mine.
some of Paul's stuff.
It's nihilistic horror. It's nihilistic horror. It's nihilist fatalistic. Natalistic?
Well, yeah, where it's like you have no hope of figuring it out. Anyway,
yeah, I know what you're
requires a
saying. I know what you're
delicate
saying.
touch. But yeah,
His
soft
books are not
magic is
actually
great.
like that. I don't want to make you think that it's actually like that. I'm just trash talking him.
I mean, you can make a system like that though, when it's soft, completely irrational, and depending on what kind of book you're writing, like if you're writing a lampoon or satire or whatever, especially if you're going after magic systems or fantasy settings, that seems like it'd be perfect. You know, you go to make the tea and the refrigerator explodes. You know, it's for no reason.
See, the way it's going to work is you're going to have Urkel in a fantasy setting, and he's going to blow up the castle and go, "Did I do that?"
Okay. So
is that while he's smoking his own weed, or if he's smoking Snoop Dogg's weed?
I'm sure this is going to bite me in the future when I finally write this character, but I have a character that I've wanted to write for a long time, where his power manipulates probabilities, but he doesn't know that. And his name is naturally Murphy, and he goes around and he's doing stuff, and his powers are making just like superhero stuff happen around him all of the time. But his catchphrase is he'll run in and try and do something, because last time he was in a gunfight, he made a guy catch fire and blow up. So he tries to do that again. This time something completely different happens, and it goes all off the rails, and his phrase is just going to be, "That's not what happened last time."
There was a show on Fox around the same time as Millennium and X-Files. Maybe it was called True Luck or something like that. I don't remember. But the character was Strange Luck. That's what it was called. He could always make things happen for other people, but that meant horrible things were going to happen to him. And weird things would happen where for no reason, like for instance, a lottery ticket that was a winner would just show up in his hand, so to speak. But if he tried to do something with it, he was screwed. Yeah. So he had to walk this line of knowing what he could get away with and what he couldn't get away with. And that's kind of what it reminded me of. And he didn't know how it worked. He had no clue why he had it or anything else. It's just this thing that happens, right? So we find this poor person who's been living with this shit their entire life, trying to live a normal life, and well, things aren't normal.
Yeah. I can't wait to write Murphy. He's going to be like a mix between Pink Panther and Domino. Like he always survives, and he'll run in and he's like, "I know, I'm a fire wielder. That's what I am."
Today,
he tries to do it, and he's like, "Okay, so I'm not a fire wielder. I must be this then."
One of the things that I discussed this with another lit RPG author before I finished creating the initial setup for my world, is I decided to include a statistic called karma. And if the guy does good things, he'll gain karma. But if he does bad things, he gets negative karma. And he inadvertently does a very bad thing early on. And so he's saddled with like a negative 55 karma as the story starts out. And then when the opportunity presents itself, I do him dirty and bump his karma up a little bit for doing him dirty.
I love it.
There are always consequences for your actions, and the gods don't forget.
And the character's looking up, really? Really?
What did I do now?
Oh, man. So that's the blueprint. As you can tell, I freaking love it. So the Indiegogo campaign is to help cover some of the costs of publishing, because I'm doing indie publishing route, and as we all know, editors, book covers, all of that, it gets expensive when you want to do it right. So that is the point of the Indiegogo. And I mean, at this point, just I don't know. Do you guys have any other questions or other thoughts about how this would work?
I'm curious about. We're going to get out of the system for right now, because we could talk about that forever. So if we're looking for an exit strategy, I'll say, why Indiegogo versus Kickstarter? Just because Paul asked the question earlier before you came on.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So because I did do a fair bit of research on that, because the obvious choice is Kickstarter, and there's pros and cons for every choice you make, price and pleasure for absolutely everything. Really what it came down to is the type of campaigns that you can run. So Kickstarter is exclusively what is called a fixed funding campaign, where you set the amount and you either meet the funding goal and the campaign is a success, or you don't meet it and the campaign fails. The thing there is it's pros and cons, because that means you as a backer only get charged if it's successful. On the downside, that means if you really wanted it and it's not successful, you don't get the stuff you backed. So the other type of campaign is called flexible funding, and Indiegogo offers that option. And that's why I went that route. I have the book written. It's already out with my editors. The book is going to be published one way or another. The campaign is just a way for me to, one, raise awareness, help cover some of the costs up front, and two, get a whole bunch of bonus content and give out additional rewards and perks to people who can back. So if somebody backs, I want them to get what they paid for. So I'm doing a flexible funding campaign. So if somebody comes in and they back for the hard book copy, they will get the hard book copy whether I meet the full funding goal or not. And that's why I focused on Indiegogo. And I knew that would hurt me a little bit because just statistically, flexible funding campaigns don't do as well as fixed. But
I'm trying to remember now what I backed. I backed with the early bird. So I may have backed for the hardback. It seems like that would be what I would back for it. I'll have to go look.
Well, and if you want to, there are some problems that come with the flexible funding. So like if you want to upgrade your backing tier, that can get a little complicated.
So you have to slide the author 20 under the table.
More, you either need to do it in time to get a refund from Indiegogo, or you need to work with me to get it balanced out, which I'm happy to do if anybody wants to do that. But that was the main thing. I didn't know. I had no idea if this was going to be successful. And for the one person who came in and said, I want a copy of your book, I wanted to make sure that they were going to get a copy of their book and any of the extra perks that they had tried to get. So that's why I picked Indiegogo.
Cool. I was not aware of that. I had a feeling it was probably something to do with that, but I didn't understand the true difference between flexible and fixed.
Yeah.
All right, then. That explains it. Well, Terry, what else you got?
Hang on. Right now, I'm trying to figure out what the hell I did.
Terry's the consummate professional. He does his taxes while we're doing the show,
Doesn't everybody?
Cleans the cat box.
I mean, the other people can do taxes while they're listening to the show, Terry. You're not supposed to do them while you're recording the show.
I was looking there because I went the initial route, even though I'm doing the Master Magic Builder, it's for the paperback version because that's what the intro level was for, and I'm cool with that.
Okay.
I just had to look because I couldn't remember.
And that was something that because this is my first crowdfunding campaign, it has been a learning process figuring out what they will and won't let me get away with. So especially with early bird stuff. If you do want one of the higher tiers, I can set something up with you so you can get a similar discount for the higher tier, and I'm cool with that. And anybody listening to this isn't an invite to just try and like rob me blind. But if there's stuff that you want to do that isn't quite set up right on Indiegogo, do let me know, and I do want to try and make it work because there are limits to what you can plan for and account for with the system itself.
All right. All makes sense to me.
Cool.
So where can people find you? And I know you've got another book on writing out there that's already up on Amazon because I saw it. I just haven't picked it up yet. So where can they find you?
Yeah, best places to find me are my website, which is crrowenson.com. You can also find me on YouTube on the channel The Magic Engineer. And I started that a couple months ago. Mostly the same content comes out on the YouTube channel and in articles on the website. So if you prefer text, go to the website. If you prefer video, just follow on YouTube. If you want my previous book, it is called Restrictions May Apply: Building Limits for Your Magic. and it is a workbook exclusively designed to help you develop limitations for your magic system. And it walks you through a number of exercises, finding both fonts of inspiration and parts of your system that likely need some limiting.
See the earlier conversation Terry and I had about the astoundingly stupid weapon.
I use cats as my limitations for my magic system.
Let's
go on.
Yes, go on. So is cat litter like what does cat litter do exactly in this particular magic system?
Or are the cats just the gods and it's like you have to successfully
pretty much the cats are the gods, and depending on the treats that you have is how successful you are.
So when you do your prayer, you only get your powers if you successfully administer a tummy rub, which we all know is a dangerous prospect at best.
You might get clawed. It could happen.
Depending on the cat.
Yep.
Very much.
Each cat has a different sphere of magic, so you have to tailor your petting, praying to the appropriate cat god.
Do I get bonus points, bonus mana if the cat is able to use my Mac Mini as a heating pad?
I'm sure it gains you favor until you need to do work and then disapprove.
Yeah.
That's actually very scarily accurate.
Yes. Incredibly scarily accurate. All right, Terry, I think it's time to get us out of here.
All right, folks. If you have questions that you'd like to send us about this, you probably shouldn't because we don't really know anything about it. But you should send us a note at show@deadrobotsociety.com. Actually, go to his website and ask him the questions because he would know better than we would. You can find us on Twitter. You can find Paul on Twitter at Paul_E_Cooley. You can find me on Facebook at the Listeners of the Dead Robot Society Facebook group. We have to thank the good folks at podhoster.com for hosting our audio. But if you want to see our ugly mugs, you can go to youtube.com/DRS podcast, where you can see all the ugly you could possibly hope to see.
And lots of cats.
Mm-hmm.
Lots of cats.
Lots and lots of cats. If you want to support us on Patreon, you can do so, where for as little as $1 a month, you can get exclusive content, like the live show that we owe our patrons.
This weekend, I think. This weekend. We'll make it happen.
This weekend? We could probably make...
We'll talk.
We could talk.
We'll figure it out.
It's not like they're going to see this episode before then, although this episode doesn't need to come out fairly soon since there's a project attached to it.
They will see this Tuesday, more likely.
Okay.
Awesome. If not Monday. There you go.
And, of course, we cannot leave without discussing our sponsor, Corpse Coffee. And I will let Paul do that because he does it much better than I do.
Yes, but before we get to Corpse Coffee, we have to thank our wonderful patrons at the $10 level.
Oh, that's right. I forgot our lovely $10 patrons. I'm sorry.
You suck at this. And our $10
it's like I haven't hosted a show for like 10 years or something.
You hosted one last week, you douche.
And appreciates all of you. He's just troubled.
And our $10 patrons are. It's be interesting to see how I edit this mess together, whether or not I just leave it in there to show just how fucked Terry is in the head.
You should leave it in there to show how messed up I am. That's what you should do.
And once again, for the third time, our $10 patrons are Simmer Wilson, Tony L. Joy, Andrew Smallwood, Veronica Jaguar, Rick Shaw, Lisa Slack, Chris Winder, and Isabel Cushy. Thank you to all of our patrons for supporting us. You make this show possible.
Indeed you do.
And with that,
Coffee,
Terry,
Paul. Coffee, Paul.
Oh, coffee. God damn it. And if you're looking for some good old caffeine, go to corpsecoffee.com and order yourself some dead people. You grind them up in your grinder, you filter them, you pour the water through there, and you can listen to their captured screams as the
putrid flesh and souls. Out. That's all we need to drink.
So go to corpsecoffee.com and get the dead in your cup.
Did he ever approve an actual saying for us, or are you just making this up?
Shit, no. All he's got is no mortal brew. It's no mortal brew because it's got dead people in it. scary ghosts, ancestors,
You know,
stuff like
one
that.
of these days he's going to listen to this and go, "Oh my God, what are they saying? No, don't say that."
Oh God, Paul did ask me for PR materials. I better get on that shit.
You know, you're like a walking life lesson. Oh, I should have gave him that really fast.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. Don't give him precise instructions. He kind of goes in places we didn't see. Okay. Yeah. So go visit corpsecoffee.com, support our friend of the show, Dave Rowenson, and make sure we keep getting caffeine.
Caffeine is good.
Yeah, caffeine's good. Terry, take us out.
And with that, we are out of here. Thanks for coming on, Clark. We really appreciate you spending the time to explain how terrible our magic systems are.
No, how terrible your magic system is.
Thanks for having me. Oh man, it got a good ab workout here, so thank you.
Poor Clark, he's never coming on this show again.
He's learned his lesson now.
Exactly. We're not DRS. Hey, happening again.
What does that say about me if I then come back? I don't.
You're a glutton for punishment.
Yeah. Basically, you have no concept of self-restraint, or you're really
all of your taste is in your mouth.
Or you're really masochistic, and let's not
I've
go
had
there.
fun, whatever that says about me. So thank you for having me.
We'll see you next time, folks.
And with that, we are out of here. Bye-bye, folks.
Bye.